title of my message is Hidden Messages in Fairy Tales. Fairy tales have been told in every language in every country for as long as humans have allowed themselves to step into the realm of the fantastic. It is difficult to determine when the first literary fairy tale was conceived. We do know, however, that fairy tales are derived from oral folk tales, which contain elements of marvel, wonder, and have existed for thousands of years. Oral tales were told by adults for adults. The purpose of the folk tales was to foster a sense of belonging and hope that miracles were possible for the better world. They were closely connected to the customs, beliefs, and rituals of the tribes and communities. As a literary genre, fairy tales began to develop in France. In the 17th and early 18th century, literary saloons began to emerge as a place for telling and acting out fairy tales. Generally created by women, literary saloons gave women a chance to show off the wit and intellect. The most famous author of fairy tales from this time is Catherine Deneuve, who wrote and published 4 volumes of fairy tales between 1696 and 1698. Another French fairy tale writer was Charles Perrault. He frequented literary saloons in France and wrote 2 tales like The Foolish Wishes, 1693, and The Donkey Skin in 1694. He later published famous renditions like Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Sleep and Sleeping Beauty, and others. As Zip points out, he sought to establish the literary fairy tale as an innovative genre that amplified a modern sensibility that was coming into its own and was equated with greatness of French civilette. These first literary tales were meant for adult entertainment for the upper class. Soon after the tales of Deneuve and Perrault were published, they became available in inexpensive volumes that were rewritten in the more simplistic manner for the lower classes to be read to the illiterate and children. Although many of these tales had not been edited for children yet, they were read to children of the upper class to instill in them a sense of appropriate social norms, gender roles, and manners. Soon fairy tales for children became a popular form of literature. However, the children's fairy tale had to represent children according to stringent gender-specific roles and class codes. Often the tales were read to children by their nannies and governesses, while later they were told to children by their mothers as bedtime stories. Fairy tales gave children an opportunity to seek their own solution to inner conflicts through complicating what the story seems to imply about themselves and their own inner conflicts at this moment in their life. Happy endings, which are typically for fairy tales, provide a positive backdrop for overcoming a dangerous or adverse situations. Children are experiencing anxieties that, according to Bethlehem, can be worked through, even if subconsciously, by brief exposure to fairy tales that address those anxieties in some way or another. As with many fairy tales, hidden messages can be found in Little Red Riding Hood. People have very different interpretations, ways of understanding the hidden meanings. There are 2 main ways that the story of Little Red Riding Hood can be interpreted. The first step of interpretation is about morality. It is about what is right and what is wrong. The easy message for the children to understand is that it can be dangerous to trust strangers. A more adult interpretation is about sexuality. Some people think that the story of the girl being eaten is really a symbol for rape. Susan Brown Miller wrote a book about it called Against Our Will. Some of other versions of the story seem to be more about rape than the way that the brothers Grimm wrote it, which was for children. The brothers Grimm wrote it for children. In my conclusion, fairy tales can be so beneficial because they help a person find his own solutions. This person finds these solutions by inwardly reflecting on what the story implies about his life at that time. The context in which the tale is told has little, if anything, to do with the person's external life, but it does have much to do with his inner one. Oftentimes, this is just what a child needs. Fairy tales leave to the listeners how to apply what the story may reveal, if they choose to apply it at all. Many other children's stories do not provide such options.